All right, guys, welcome to the show. Obviously, things are a little bit different right now. I'm in Washington, D.C. instead of New York, as those of you who follow me on Twitter know already. Had a wee bit of an accident the other day. I tore my calf muscle, and I'm incapable of driving or really walking without these things at this point. I mean, I could do like an extreme sort of limp thing, but it looks ridiculous, so I should probably just use the crutches and not injure myself even further. So the release of the videos this week is going to be a little bit different, but bear with me. It's still going to be the same amount of content. It's just going to be uploaded maybe at slightly different times. The schedule's a little bit wacky. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and I want to go ahead and jump right into it because I'm already behind with this one story, which is probably the most important of the last few months because everything sort of came to a head recently with the infrastructure bill. So there was supposed to be a vote on Build Back Better and on what they call BIF, ridiculous acronym and name, which stands for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Deal. And deal? No, that would be bid, but you get the point. And what ended up happening is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Deal, which is incredibly watered down, semi-corporatist, really nowhere near as good as the Build Back Better bill, which is the reconciliation bill. The infrastructure deal, the bipartisan one, passed the House, and the Build Back Better deal did not. So right off the bat, there's red flags all over the place because, as you know, for the longest time, progressives were saying, we have to put these two together. That was the original deal. We're not bending. We're going to hold the line. To their credit, they did hold the line twice and say, no, we're keeping these linked together. But when push came to shove at the end, it looks like the House passed one of the bills without the other, which means they didn't really hold true to that commitment. So let me go ahead and throw up there the names of the people and how they voted. So the only Democrats to vote no: Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. And in the case of Pressley, she actually waited until they knew that the infrastructure bill would pass before she said, okay, I'm a no vote. So she's questionable. The other ones, I guess, credit for doing the right thing, even though it's pathetic. It was only 6 of them who held true to the original deal. Now, on the Republican side, you had, I think, 13 Republicans cross the aisle and vote for the bipartisan deal. So you have Bacon, Gonzalez, Garbarino, Fitzpatrick, Katko, Kinzinger, Malliotakis, McKinley, Reed, Chris Smith, Upton, Vandrew, and Young. So what the hell just happened? And what is now likely to happen moving forward? I've looked at this thing 47 ways to Sunday, and I can't wrap my mind around the notion that Build Back Better even passes at this point, although hold your horses on that. It is possible something passes, but if something does pass, it wouldn't be nearly as good as what we were originally talking about. So here are the possibilities. What's possible is Build Back Better just simply doesn't pass. That, you know, all the people who gave these commitments. Now, actually, you know what? Before I even get to that stuff, throw up the next graphic because I want to show you what the Progressive Caucus said about this. So at the bottom there, you can see Representative Pramila Jayapal, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, issued the following statement regarding votes scheduled in the House of Representatives. Tonight, members of the Progressive Caucus and our colleagues in the Democratic Caucus reached an agreement to advance both pieces of President Biden's legislative agenda. Our colleagues have committed to voting for the transformative Build Back Better Act as currently written no later than the week of November 15th. All of our colleagues have also committed to voting tonight on the rule to move the Build Back Better Act forward to codify this promise. The president has affirmed these members gave him the same commitment. As part of this agreement, at the request of the president, and to ensure we pass both bills through the House, progressives will advance the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the House rule on the Build Back Better tonight. So here's what that means. We got commitments, vague commitments, and statements from people who didn't vote to pass Build Back Better that by November 15th, we will be in favor of passing Build Back Better as it exists right now. Again, that should be a massive red flag in your mind. And how do I know that? Here, it's very simple. Oh, you say you're in favor of Build Back Better as it exists right now? There's a very simple way to prove it. Vote for it right now. Right along with the bipartisan infrastructure deal, which is what the whole plan was to begin with. So you can't say, oh yeah, I'm in favor of it, and I'm in favor of it exactly as is, but don't ask me to vote on it now. How about November 15th? How does that make sense? No, if you're in favor of it, you would vote yes on it right now. So what likely happened here? As per usual, progressives got rolled. And so Pramila Jayapal also came out and said, well, it's okay. We got Biden's word that he can hold the Senate on Build Back Better. And we have Pelosi's word that the moderates, so-called moderates, the corporatists in the House, are also going to be for Build Back Better by November 15th. Well, if nothing's going to change in the bill, why do you have to wait till November 15th? They could vote for it right then and there, but they didn't vote for it right then and there. Why? Likely because they are not in favor of it. So wait, here are the possibilities. Like I was beginning to say before, option number one is Build Back Better is just dead. And when November 15th comes, they go, ha ha, we told you we were for it. Guess what? I'm not. The other thing is, so that's one option. It just dies. It just dies and goes nowhere. The bipartisan bill got through, and that was that. That's all the corporatists really wanted. That's all the corporations really wanted. So, and Biden can still pretend like he got some sort of victory. I got an infrastructure deal passed, even though it's watered down and terrible and semi-corporatist, so on and so forth. The other option is November 15th comes, and there's the unveiling of the new Build Back Better agenda, which is, of course, made even worse. So remember, we started out, Bernie Sanders and the left said we need $10 trillion for basically a human infrastructure bill to do all these popular policies. Then it became, okay, now the left is calling for $6 trillion. Then it became, finally, we got the compromise, $3.5 trillion. This is the deal. Then we heard, what was it, $1.9 trillion? Then we got to $1.75 trillion. So now everybody agrees to the framework of $1.75 trillion. What does that mean? If you're in favor of the bill as it is now, you would vote for it. So they're in favor of the framework of $1.75 trillion, but what they could do and what they might do is keep that $1.75 trillion number and just strip out a couple more popular provisions and put in a couple more bullshit provisions. Like, for example, one of the bullshit provisions that's now in the bill is the SALT tax. So they want to bring back the SALT tax repeal, which is the state and local tax deduction, which for those of you who don't know is just a big tax break for wealthy people in blue states. The only way you can really get the moderates, the corporatists on board to vote for Build Back Better is if the SALT tax repeal is in there. And now it's in the bill. So how do we know we're not going to get 3 or 4 or 5 other, last-minute SALT tax things? The answer is we don't, because now the progressives have zero leverage. So what they're saying is, okay, you could either shaft us right now and say, haha, we're not for anything, and the left has no way to respond because they already voted for the infrastructure deal. That was their point of leverage. Or they could just turn around and say, well, we're going to make it a hell of a lot weaker, and you're going to vote for it because you have nothing to hold over us. So now if they could come out in theory and say, oh, $1.75 trillion? No, we were just kidding. Now it's $1 trillion, or now it's $1.5 trillion. And the left have to be like, okay, I guess if this is the best we can get. And therein lies the problem. When you give away all your leverage up front to take the word of somebody like Joe Biden and some corporatists, you're a joke. You're beyond a joke. This is the same guy who said we're going to get $15 minimum wage, and then we didn't. He's the same guy who said we're going to get a public option, and we didn't. He's the same guy who on tape said we're going to get $2,000 checks, and we didn't. Did I say 2,000? What I meant was Trump already did 600, so maybe 1,400 on top of the 600 equals 2,000 together. Good enough, right? Get off my ass. This is the same person we're talking about. And now progressives have nothing. Because listen, ultimately, what did I say to you guys? I said, the only way you could get me to vote for, the shitty, watered down, whatever it was, $1.75 trillion Build Back Better bills, to use our leverage, if you're the left, use your leverage on Biden and say, the only way I'll vote for this is if you sign this list of executive orders. Get rid of all student loan debt, legalize marijuana, free every single nonviolent drug offender. You either pardon or commute their sentences. Pardon Julian Assange, pardon Stephen Donziger, you make a list. Here's all the things we know as a matter of fact you could do through executive order. You want my vote on this thing? You want your agenda to pass? That's the only way to get it. Here's my list. These are my demands. Meet it or you don't. If you don't meet it, I'll vote no, and your whole thing is going to go the fuck down. But progressives didn't do that. In fact, not only did they not do that, they said, ultimately, we're going to vote for the 1.75 or whatever number it is now, whatever pathetic low number it is, under $2 trillion now. We're going to vote for that. And we're also going to pass the infrastructure deal without getting Manchin's commitment, without getting Sinema's commitment, and without getting a bunch of corporatists in the House, their commitment. So, obviously, you failed in this negotiation. Obviously. I don't see any other way around that. Because guess what, guys? Even in a best-case scenario, what happens? Let's say everything Pramila Jayapal said is true, right? Well, then Manchin and Sinema vote for the $1.75 trillion bill. It passes the House. The corporatists vote for it ultimately because it has the SALT tax thing in it. Okay, it gets there. It gets through there too. So, okay, now we got Build Back Better at like $1.75 trillion, and we got the traditional infrastructure deal. I told you I wouldn't be in favor of that unless there's also a bunch of executive orders which sweeten the pot. So, even under a best-case scenario, it looks like we didn't get the executive orders either. So how did you not get rolled? You did get rolled, and it was pathetic. So listen, the thing I have to say to everybody except the 6 Democrats who voted against this is you're pathetic. You're pathetic. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to play politics, or you don't really care. You don't really care. And so all you needed, how many more did you need? You needed fewer than 10 more progressives to hold the line and vote no to tank it. That's all you needed. And how many people are in the Progressive Caucus? In theory, you should be able to get like 60 people to be like, no, we're going to vote no because we're sticking to the original deal. But you didn't. Ultimately, you got 6. Just 6. 6. So you wonder why people get turned off to politics and they feel like, are we ever going to make a fucking change? This is why. This is why. All the huffing and puffing and we're going to fight and this and that, and this is what it boils down to. Because again, I want to repeat myself. Even under a best case scenario, the House passes like a $1.75 trillion bill, the Senate passes it, and then what? Well, that wasn't enough to begin with. Those weren't transformative bills enough to begin with. So, and then you didn't get the executive orders, clearly. But guys, even if that happens, they're just depending on the goodwill of people like Biden and corporate Democrats in the House. So even if they do pass it, it's like, okay, you got lucky. You need to demand shit up front and get shit up front. Because you should never rely on these people. They're the most unreliable people on the planet. So it's just incredibly pathetic and sad. And again, even under a best case scenario, it appears like a loss because I don't see any executive orders that sweeten the pot. Listen, I'm fair. So if, let's say, hypothetically, the whole thing passes just like Pramila Jayapal says it's going to pass, and then we see within a couple weeks Biden signs a bunch of transformative executive orders, then I'll come out here and I'll be fair and I'll say, oh, there probably was a deal for Biden to do executive orders behind the scene, and we just didn't see it. But you know what? What are the chances that's going to happen? You and I both know, dog. The chances are near zero. If you want to be kind, you give it a 1% chance that something like that happens. The fact of the matter is, the best predictor of future action is past action. And as per usual, the left acted ultimately in a pathetic and weak way and gave the farm away when they had all the leverage in the world. I mean, I did a segment saying, guys, you have Biden exactly where you want him. If you're on the left, you had Biden exactly where you wanted him. Because you could have tanked the whole shit. You could have been like, no, we're going to vote it down. The only way we vote yes is if you sign these transformative executive orders. And instead, it appears like not only did they not do that, they didn't even hold true to their original word. So they didn't get Manchin saying I'm signing on and Sinema saying I'm signing on. And they didn't even get both bills through the House, which everybody thought was a foregone conclusion. We thought the votes were already there in the House to get both through. You didn't even have the votes in the House, never mind the Senate. Sad, man. Sad. Listen, I call balls and strikes, so whatever happens in the coming weeks, I'll report it as is. But my reading of the situation right now is really, really not good. And as per usual, the left is a colossal disappointment.